We are just days away from the start of the Sacramento Kings season, which means it's time for our annual mild, hot, and spicy predictions podcast with Frankie Cartoscelli and Chris Watkins right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And if you've been with me over the last handful of seasons, you know that I like to kick off the season with a fun little mild, hot, and spicy predictions for the upcoming season podcast. And I'm joined by two of my closest friends in this industry, certainly in the Sacramento Kings and just Sacramento sports media scene, period. Frankie Cartoscelli and Chris Watkins from SacTown Sports 1140 Radio, two longtime friends of mine now. I really appreciate the fact that despite their schedules, they're just getting busier and busier. It's been really fun to grow with them in this industry over the last handful of years that we've known each other, to see Chris thriving as a radio host at SacTown Sports, to see Frankie thriving as a Sacramento Kings insider. It's just really cool to watch and really cool to be a part of, and I'm blessed to know them, blessed to be able to work with them, and blessed to have them take some time to come here on Locked On Kings to keep doing these podcasts with me. So if you're not fully sure of how it works, basically we each present a mild or just kind of standard prediction for this upcoming season, a hot, which is maybe like a little bit out there prediction for the season, and then a spicy, which is way out there prediction. And for example, last year, my spicy prediction was that Mike Brown would win Coach of the Year, and we had to discuss what would have to happen for that to be the case. Well, of course, lo and behold, Mike Brown actually won Coach of the Year. So these spicy predictions aren't impossible. They're maybe unlikely, but they're not impossible. So it's always a pleasure to have Chris and Frankie on to join me for these podcasts. And we want you to share your mild, hot, and spicy predictions for the Sacramento Kings season. So feel free to send those to me on Twitter at MattGeorgeSac, email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your predictions in the YouTube comment section down below. But for now, please enjoy these predictions with Frankie and Chris. It's an annual tradition before the season starts that I know these two look forward to more than anything else in the world. Frankie Cartoscelli, Chris Watkins from SacTown Sports 1140 joining me right before the season starts for another edition of mild, hot, and spicy predictions for this upcoming season. Gentlemen, I know you've had this date circled on your calendar for a long time. It's a pleasure to have you back on. I'm happy to provide you with a wonderful place for you to get these takes off your chest, especially Frankie, because Frankie always brings the heat with all of his takes.
That's really funny, Matt. Thank you for having us. And I'm wondering, is this this is a poll on Taco Bell, right? This is that's definitely what this is, right? Like
that was my understanding.
Chris was trying so hard to get it sponsored by Taco Bell last year, and by trying so hard, he referenced it one time, and then we never discussed it again. So once again, we failed this year in getting the Taco Bell sponsorship, but we'll keep working on it because we're gonna do this for the next decade together, right, guys?
Yes,
I got you under
forever,
contract, so.
decades.
Well,
as long as I'm alive, Matt, I will do this.
There you go. Lifetime contract with Frankie Cartoscelli. But let's tip things off with our mild takes. And Frankie, this is your category. So why don't you start us out with
I don't even remember what did I say last year? Do we even know what I said last year?
I don't know, but I remember your spicy take being on the level of Chris and my mild last year. That's all.
Like, the Kings are gonna win like 39 games or something was like my mild.
We were calling you catch up by the end of the podcast. That's all I remember.
You are going to think this is mild. You're going to think this is mild, but I feel like this is something that I expect, and I feel like we all should expect, and we've seen it so far. We saw it in Golden State the other night. My mild take, again, you're going to hate it probably. Keegan Murray is going to be the number 2 option on the Sacramento Kings this year. I think he's going to be Domantas Sabonis is going to be more of a facilitator, I think. I don't think we're going to see Domantas have those 20 points. I think we'll see his scoring kind of decrease, assist numbers stay the same, or increase, rebounds stay the same. But I think Keegan Murray, and also that means Kevin Huerter, or we'll see what happens with the shooting guard spot. Obviously, Harrison Barnes has kind of moved into a backup, not backup, but kind of moved into the background in that starting five. I think Keegan Murray is going to be the guy. I'm expecting over 15.5 points per game for Keegan Murray this year.
See, I think that's a good, strong start, Frankie. Chris, what do you think about that?
I think that's a great prediction because, as I told you a couple minutes ago before we started recording, I have multiple written down for each one of these levels. And the first thing I have written down is Keegan Murray will be the second highest scorer on the team. So I think that's a fantastic, can't get any better than that mild
It's
prediction.
like we work together.
Dude, it's really incredible.
You both are on the same wavelength. Well, like to build off that a little bit, one of the why I feel like you're both onto something there is like thinking back to the Golden State Warriors game on Sunday, the fact that he went 3 of 9 from 3-point range and still finished with what, like 24, 25 points, something along those lines. I think it was 24 that he ended with. Last season, he goes 3 of 9 from 3-point range. It's a 13, 15. Yeah, it's a 9-pointer, 13, 15-point performance maximum. So he's shown his ability to show that mid-range game too. So he's quickly turning into a well-rounded player, and I'm excited to see it carry over to the regular season, hopefully.
Yeah, completely agree.
It seems like that's going to be the case. I mean, especially, you're talking about that game in Golden State the other day, or in San Francisco the other day. I hate it when I do that.
I do the same thing.
I cannot stand it. It drives me crazy. But I mean, you saw like an array of everything. Like he's putting the ball on the floor. He's dunking on people. The way he's attacking the rim is different. It just, all signs are pointing towards, and you compound that all with the talk that we were hearing after the California Classic and the lead up to this season. It just seems like the entire team, it's not even it's, oh, we're hopeful for it's, no, Keegan is going to be a major factor for this team this year, and he's going to look completely different.
All right, Chris, hit us with your mild take.
All right, I've got 2 to pick from here. Let's see. I'll go with the player-oriented one. I'm going to go with Davion Mitchell. This is also building on from what we've seen in this preseason. Davion Mitchell is going to shoot 36% from 3 this upcoming season. Davion, obviously, his shot has been a big talking point throughout his career, and also with De'Aaron as well, just trying to get him, not necessarily, he doesn't need to be a 40% shooter, one of the best in the NBA. We just need like an NBA average level 3-point shooting from those two guys. And Davion talked about it. We heard him on the Deuce and Mo podcast this summer talk about how even he would acknowledge that he thinks that if he were able to knock down shots, he would have been on the floor for game 6 and 7. And it's going to be big throughout. It's not just this year, but for Davion's entire career, his ability to knock down shots is what's going to really determine how good of a player he's going to be in this league, because we know his defense is at an elite level, but if coaches can't trust him to stay on the floor, we saw the other day in Golden State, De'Aaron passes him that wide open shot in the corner. I like that he's taking it. I like that he's on the floor in that situation, especially after hitting 4 threes in that game. But those are the shots that we're going to need him to knock down. We saw him knock it down in game 2 of the playoffs last year. Really big shot, but Davion's got to stay above that Mendoza 35%, 36% from 3 line if he's going to want to play 25 plus minutes a game or close a lot of nights.
Yeah, that corner 3 is quickly becoming his go-to shot. It's like he really likes that spot on the floor. And I turned to Frankie and Brendan last night, who were sitting next to me, and I turned to him. And I remember at one point after Davion hit his first or second 3, and I turned to him and said, I hope we're not being tricked here, because his jumper looks so good in preseason. You just have that fear that the regular season is going to start and he's taking the same shots in rhythm with confidence, and they're just rimming out, because it feels like he's nothing but net right now. And it's very welcome sight to see, but hopefully that can stay consistent over the course of the year.
Yeah, I'm definitely buying. I'm buying that too. I think that it's not a fluke. I don't think it's a preseason mirage. I think that the work he's put in and who he was putting the work in with is very important. And even like at the end of the playoffs last year, there was a moment. I mean, he did have his moments last year. Again, he did go from, I guess it's progress, 31% to 32%. That's progress by definition. But
maybe
he had a big corner 3 last year, I think in game 2, that kind of sealed the deal.
Yep.
And that's really going to be something to watch for me as well. Just can he knock down those shots, especially playing alongside De'Aaron Fox if they do share the court. But I trust in Steph Curry and especially his shooting coach, and especially when you see what he did the other night to the Kings in a preseason game. But I like that, Chris. I like Davion going over 35% for three.
Yeah, Malik said last night the big difference that he noticed too was the confidence that Davion Mitchell has in the shot now too.
No hesitation.
Yeah, he just feels like it's going in versus the start of last season. It looked like he was thinking about how to fit into the Kings offense and not just playing, and that kind of held him back a little bit. Well, my mild take has to do with the team at home. We know the Sacramento home court advantage. We know the NBA wants to showcase that home court advantage with the national TV games. So my mild take is that the Sacramento Kings are going to have a top 5 home record in the NBA this season. I think to get to where they want to go, they have to be near unbeatable at home. Initially, I wrote top 3, but that felt a little more hot than it felt mild. So I'm gonna stick with top 5. But I think the Kings are going to be a really, really dangerous team at home this year.
I like it. I mean, I have that as one of my hot takes. I have the Kings will be 10 games over 500 at home. So
I'm
right
like
there
that.
with you. I think that, when we factor in the fact that we know Golden One Center is one of the best home court advantages, regardless of record, it just doesn't. Last year's record doesn't make any sense. It feels like with this team, being a good team this year, hopefully, and the crowd, knowing what we know about that crowd, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to take care of home court, unlike they did last year.
That's one of the weirdest wrinkles to last year, I think, too. The fact that they were so good on the road, 25-16. That's, I think, 1 win short of a Sacramento era record. And the fact that they only were 5 games over at home is honestly, it's incredible to me. Because it felt like they were such a good team. It's just they weren't. They were. But that also speaks to how the Kings got to where they were, because they were able to take care of business on the road. But imagine if they were able to pull out some of those close games at home, and some of the ones where you kind of were thinking, wow, they really blew that one. I think mostly at the end of the year, they really had a rough stretch in closing out games and sealing that playoff berth. I think that's something to keep an eye on too. But I have no doubt that they'll be better at home this year. Health, pending health, of course.
They had their worst losses of the season at home. The Washington loss. There was another loss in there at home that was really, really bad. The Charlotte loss.
San Antonio. They also San Antonio late in the year at home.
Yeah, just some very weird, random, bad losses in their own building. And Mike Brown didn't blame the Sacramento crowd, but indirectly, it was kind of like it's Kings fans' fault, from the sense that they brought so much energy that the team relied on the fan energy more than their own energy.
Fans were too good.
Yeah, fans were too good almost. So he's challenging his players this year to be a little bit better on that end. All right.
Can I give my extra mild take, or should I just give it all at the end? Give all my extras at the end.
Unload it, brother. Unload it.
Hit us with the extra mild.
All right. My extra mild is Jordy Fernandez and Jay Triano will both be gone after this season, and Luke Laux and Doug Christie will step into place.
Ooh, I think for sure Jordy, 100%. Jay is a shout, though.
The Triano thing was more in the sense of he's their Kings offensive coordinator, and if the Kings in back-to-back seasons have one of, if not the best offense in the NBA, I just have a tough time imagining that no one's going to call Jay Triano's phone. I know he's a little bit older, and he's if you want to use the term, a retread coach in the NBA, but I mean, it'd be hard to not look at the fact that the Kings have one of, if not the best offense in the NBA, and he's been the orchestrator of it.
Yeah, deep coaching staff, very deep coaching staff. I don't know if we'll see it quite arguably the deepest in the NBA. I mean, especially now at Terry Stotts, that story in Milwaukee, he took off. Very interesting, by the way. But no, I went into the season fully expecting that this is the last season that the Kings are going to have Jordy, which is a bummer. Mm-hmm. But he's been on the short list of several jobs, and it seems like he is next. And that's just not even like Sacramento or our local media guys talking about it. That's like NBA media and other guys across the country talking about Jordy and what he can bring to a team. So him being on is one thing. But yeah, Jay Triano is a guy who also has been around for a long time. And I definitely wouldn't doubt someone coming and knocking on that door as well. So that's also another good take, I think, Chris.
Jordy's going to have his pick of where he wants to go. I feel like there are going to be multiple teams that are giving him an offer, and he's going to get to choose this offseason. My question is, to kind of to your point, Chris, does Jordy pick his lead assistant from the Sacramento Kings current coaching rotation? And is it Jay Triano, or are you taking Luke Laux? Are you plucking another lead assistant from the Sacramento Kings coaching staff?
I was not considering that. Let's not. I can only take so many losses at once. But that's an excellent point. I mean, because that's a very, very real thing. I mean, coaches leave and then they pick from the guys that they know, and a lot of the guys they know are going to be guys from Mike Brown's staff.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Sackyard. So excited to have the Sackyard Community Tap House on board, my first ever local sponsor, and to join me all season long. Sackyard is an absolutely incredible place for you to take your family, for you to go with your friends, for you to watch a Kings game. They have the most delicious beers on tap that you could possibly find. In addition to that, also a plethora of some of the best local wines that you could possibly find too. And Sackyard is all over the community. You can find them sponsoring Sac State football games. They're very much ingrained in the Sacramento Kings scene as well. One of the best places to go and watch Kings basketball games. And if you're familiar with Sackyard, hopefully you got the opportunity to go and watch the playoffs at Sackyard last year because they were incredible. They have so many TVs, an amazing outdoor patio that also includes an area for lawn games and a stage where they have all sorts of live shows and music and things like that. It's a perfect place to bring your family, and that includes your fluffy family members. Yes, dogs are not only welcome, they are encouraged at Sackyard. Amazing place for you to go and spend your time. And I'm so blessed to have them as a first sponsor because not only are they a great community partner with the Locked On Kings podcast, they're going to provide us all with opportunities to do watch parties this year, and we're already working in a very near future, pretty early on in the season, working on a Kings Road game that we can get together, myself included, and go and watch the game together and enjoy that community that way. And I'm already working on a live show that I'm going to be doing from Sackyard this season, and I have 2 guests for that are telling me they want to do it and they're ready to do it. Hopefully our schedules work out so it can be possible. But if we're able to pull this off, it's going to be an incredible live show that we're going to be able to do at Sackyard. So new opportunities this season only made possible by Sackyard. Go and watch Kings games, get there, go and get some drinks, enjoy the festivities, bring your family and have a great time. I'm so excited to have Sackyard Community Tap House as a sponsor here of Locked On Kings. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, right now, it's the perfect time to snap into the NFL action on America's #1 sportsbook because new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So all you have to do is invest $5 of your own money, right? Put $5 down and bet on spreads or player props or over-unders or whatever you want to bet on. Doesn't matter. Put $5 down. If you win, congratulations, you're already making money. And here's $200 in bonus bets on top of that for you to keep making money. If you lose, you got an insurance policy, right? Oh, okay, you're down $5, but here's $200 for you to make that $5 back and then some. If you're thinking about joining FanDuel, right now is the perfect time to get in on the action. And it's not just, of course, NFL action. Once the NBA season gets going, FanDuel is perfect for your hoops as well. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's go to the hot takes. And I'll start with my hot take. And this shouldn't surprise too many people because it involves Keegan Murray. I think building off of what Frankie said for his mild take with Keegan becoming that second leading scorer, I think Keegan Murray will win most improved player this year. I think he's going to make such a sizable jump with the Sacramento Kings also being an established team that the NBA is going to have that kind of conundrum of, well, this team has to win some awards, but they're not going to win Coach of the Year again. They're not going to win General Manager of the Year again. Okay, Keegan Murray exploded. All right, most improved player. Let's give Keegan Murray that award. So I think Keegan is going to be major in the running for that spot this year.
That'd be interesting.
That'll be interesting. And Brendan and I were actually having this conversation a day or two ago about how we don't think there'll be any accolades for the Kings this year. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as far as maybe if De'Aaron will be an all-star again, I think he should be. I think if Damian Lillard is no longer in the West and that spot is there, De'Aaron already has one, he should keep it. I think that's the way all-star games usually work in appearances. If you're in, usually you retain it if you're healthy and you're still playing well. But I don't know about any other accolades. I mean, I don't think Mike Brown will be back-to-back Coach of the Year. I'm not sure if that's ever happened before. I don't know about rookie. I mean, I'm still, well, we'll see. You know, I'm starting to kind of think some all rookie stuff could happen if some things start taking off here.
Choo-choo.
About someone I'm going to mention in a few minutes here. But yeah, I can see Chris doesn't like it already. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Well, we can get to that in a second if you want. But yeah, I definitely think that Keegan Murray can be in the mix for most improved.
I like it. I ain't got
All right.
I was like, yeah.
Frankie.
You're already moving on, I guess, to this one, which is it is about Colby Jones.
Shocking.
And I can tell. I didn't get to hear your thoughts on Colby Jones today, Chris. So I'm interested to hear them after this. But I do have my hot take, and it is that Colby Jones enters the starting shooting guard conversation by December.
Oof. That's pretty spicy.
Can I state my?
That
I'm
feels
proud
spicy.
of you.
That feels
I'm proud
spicy.
of you, Frankie,
Let
for
me-
that, because that's you
That feels
going out
spicy.
on a limb, Frankie.
Let me state my case. When Mike
Guilty.
Brown gets excited about a player, it means something. And
Casey
his
Alcala.
quotes, yes.
Ooh.
And that man opened last year as a starting power/small forward
Yes,
And the
on
Kings
a
went 0-4.
soon to be playoff team.
And
And the Kings would go on 4. Sure. I'm sure. But the fact that Mike Brown made those comments last night, and he really was kind of just, it was like googly eyes over him. And the fact that Colby is a two-way player, he can handle the basketball, which I think that's a part of his game I didn't really look at too much. But again, when you look at his numbers at Xavier, I'm not sure how to say that right. Is it Xavier?
I believe it's Xavier. With his Z.
Xavier. He was an assist guy. He was, I think, 4.5 assists per game. He is someone that can initiate the offense. And I feel like that's very important. I think right now, Colby's more of a guy that's in the mix. Honestly, if Davion's shot does not carry over, I think we could see Colby kind of running the offense if Davion's shooting 15% from 3 in December or whatever. But I do feel like the Kevin Huerter writing is on the wall at this point. I do think if he isn't coming out and he's knocking down threes at a consistent rate and he's able to hold his own on the defensive end, and we've seen him struggle. Last night was a very tough start for him and in that game on both ends of the floor. I think Colby Jones is an ideal fit as far as what he brings on the defensive end. He can shoot the basketball. He hustles. He cuts out the basketball. Mike Brown said he's probably the best off-ball cutter that this team has. So I feel like if he comes out there and he looks ready and he seems like he is ready, we could kind of start seeing some lineup tinkering. And that's all taking, like Chris Duarte, of course, if he can be, what I'm saying Colby can be, because that's kind of what the Kings are looking at Chris Duarte as, a guy that can play defense. Because he's 6'6", he can guard multiple positions, he can knock down threes. If Chris Duarte is healthy and he's performing well, then yeah, this is a moot prediction. But I have that feeling in the back of my head that we could be seeing some Colby Jones starting, or at least heavy rotation minutes in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, I've really liked Colby. I've been incredibly impressed, especially these last 2 games with just what he's been able to put together. But yeah, I mean, I personally just feel like he's got a long list of people in front of him that he's going to have to work through, and that you just kind of went through. I mean, it is still going to take Kevin Huerter struggling throughout the regular season. I think Mike Brown's going to give him a good chance to kind of work through his shooting slump that he's going through right now. And then, Malik Monk, it doesn't seem like Mike Brown is ever going to start him, put him into that starting rotation. He really likes him coming off the bench. And then Chris Duarte, Duarte, I think is pretty much everything that you described for Colby Jones. It's just he's got a little bit more experience. And so I feel like coaches will always heavily lean towards guys that they know what they're going to get than Colby Jones, who has had some really good performances these last couple of games, but you just can't factor in the inconsistency that you'll get from rookies. And I definitely think if you were to extend it to by the end of the season, I could definitely see a world where Colby Jones is a member of this rotation for sure. But by December is just a little bit too soon for me. And I just think he's got a lot of people higher up in the pecking order that he's got to kind of break through. And also those guys kind of have to fall down in order for Colby to get significant rotation minutes anytime soon. But his play these past couple of games has definitely opened that door of possibility, because I think before that it was really just, hey, this is a two-way Stockton guy who we hope can maybe be something in the future. But he, to your point, to what I think you're really getting at, he looks like he's ready to contribute right here, right now.
You heard it here first. Frankie Cartoscelli hates fellow New York Yankee fan Kevin Huerter.
I am not.
That's exactly
what man.
That's what I took away from that.
That goes for some of the people that are, you hear the same thing, Matt, saying that, people that grew up fans can't be, objective. I mean, we can be objective. I mean, he's got to pick it up on the defensive end. I think we all agree that was a huge problem in the playoffs. Yep. And I love what Kevin brings on offense. I hope he can figure it out. But there's just something missing with the Kings right now, and that two-way versatility and those guys that can play both ends of the floor. They need guys like that. So whether it's Kevin or somebody else, someone's got to step in at some point.
See, what you said right there, I think, is the key, the two-way versatility. And that's why I think Colby Jones is showing that he's perfect for exactly what the Kings were looking for from their depth, which is a two-way guy that can come in and provide energy on both sides of the ball. Like, I think Colby Jones is forcing Mike Brown to consider finding a way to work him into the everyday rotation. But I think Colby Jones touching the starting lineup is pretty far off for a lot of the reasons that Chris laid out with the amount of guys that are ahead of him and in front of him. But I think Colby's putting a lot of pressure on Chris Duarte to deliver right away. If Chris Duarte is part of the everyday rotation, Chris, you better be ready to go and provide that two-way presence that the Kings need. Because if not, here's this rookie on the back burner. And then that pressure kind of extends to Kevin Huerter a little bit, because let's say Kevin falls out of that starting spot and Duarte replaces him. Well, if Kevin's coming off the bench and still only providing scoring, here's this two-way rookie that's over here like, I can still give it to you in the 15 minutes a night that you're trying to play me. So I think ultimately the best thing that Colby Jones is doing is making Mike Brown's job difficult. And that's all you can ask out of a rookie, let alone a second-round pick. People forget he's a second-rounder.
And last comment on this before we have to move on, but I again, hence the hot take. I think it makes more sense for this to be like Chris said, if it was later in the season. I do think it is more realistic, but I'm more thinking of the fact of, or the mindset of, if the Kings are struggling early in the season and they're trying to find something to change things up. And I hope that doesn't happen, but that's hence the hot take. But my last comment on Colby is, I do feel strongly that long-term, he is a guy that could be very helpful to this team, unless they try to involve him in a deal to upgrade the roster elsewhere in other ways. But he is the exact guy. And again, it proves that Monty McNair does not mess around when it's June and it's NBA draft time.
All right, Chris, hit us with your hot take.
For sure. Let's see. I got to pick between two of them. Let's do. We already just kind of talked about the shooting guard, so I'll skip on this one. Let's say this one feels like it could be borderline mild, but I'll throw it in this hot range. Kings will definitively make a big trade by the trade deadline. Of course, February is when the NBA trade deadline is. Some of the bigger contracts that they have that they can move on from. HB obviously just signed a new deal. He'll be making around $17 million a year. Can't move on from him until after January, when like the recently signed whatever, there's like a deadline where you can't trade people who you just signed in the
offseason. Is it January or December?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And Kevin Huerter's making $15 million. Malik Monk expiring contract, $9 million. I just think that this is more. I don't know if it has to happen this year, but just for the sake of this, I think it opens up the conversation of. To me, this is more pointing at. I don't think this Sacramento Kings team, this current group of guys, is necessarily one that's going to make a ton of noise in the playoffs. Like, could this team make it out of the first round? Definitely. We saw that last year. They probably should have. If they didn't go against Golden State, I would have argued they definitely would have made the second round. But can they get past that? Is this team even capable of making the conference title? Is it anywhere near an actual NBA title contention? I don't think so. And I think that they're still kind of waiting on that third star. Now, it could be Keegan Murray. If Keegan develops throughout this year, maybe this doesn't become as important, and that maybe they can continue to kick the can down the line. But I think with a super competitive Western Conference this year, I think it's going to be a lot of teams kind of in the same category, in the same tier. There's a possibility that the Kings, if they're in that muck, they can see a trade where, who knows, stars become available all the time. Karl Anthony Towns, Trae Young, obviously James Harden's available now. If Paul George becomes available, there's so many different options. But if DeMar DeRozan becomes available, there's so many different routes.
That was a name I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they want to take this thing to another level and they want to say, hey, we're kind of in the mud right now, stuck, can't really differentiate ourselves from the Lakers, the Warriors, the whoever you want to throw out there, OKC, do they look and say the landscape's kind of open? We have a possible opportunity to hop on when there's not really one clear dominant team in this Western Conference. Let's go for it. Let's move HB. Let's move on from Kevin Huerter, who we just discussed is having some possible rotational issues. I think that this could be a really good time for this team to try and hop on an opportunity here. Now, the question will be, obviously, the deadline's in February. Where do they stand at that point in time? Where's the health at? Do they does a need become very apparent? Is the big man situation something that kind of needs to be addressed? We don't know that yet, but it just feels like if this team wants to, where they're at right now is totally fine. They're in the conversation of being a playoff. Some people have them in the play-in conversation. Regardless, they're not in those conversations. Will they look for now to be the time to strike? I don't think so, but it would not surprise me if someone becomes available and Monty McNair just jumps on that opportunity like he did with Domantas Sabonis.
I'm going to throw one more name into the mix. I don't think we're done hearing the Sacramento Kings pursuit of OG Anunoby.
Oh, goodness. Can we please?
Get
Can we
in
please
line.
be done with it?
I don't
Because
think we're done.
I can't with Masai. I can't.
I don't think we're done.
He's, what is it? The Dave Chappelle holding on to the money. Like, that's what he's doing with Siakam and OG. He won't trade any of those guys, man.
But I don't think the Raptors are going to be very good. And I think we're also going to get to a crossroads again where the Kings are like, look, the best thing you're going to get is this player, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, and draft compensation.
I
Take it or
agree.
leave it. And I think
agree,
the Kings are going to, if there's a player that they go aggressively after the trade deadline, I feel like if the best odds are OG.
I mean, he'd be like a dream addition. I mean, a guy that can defend, I think 3 through some small ball 5 guys, and then you have him the ability to score on offense. I mean, I think he's young. He fits the timeline. I mean, that's
perfectly. He's literally everything you want.
Impending free agent, I believe. So is Siakam.
Yeah, you would have to sign him. You would have to lock him down long term, which is the fear for me.
Yeah, that's the only scary thing. And I never know how those behind the scenes negotiations go as far as, are you down to sign an extension once you get here? And I mean, I don't know. I feel like a year ago, people would say Sacramento, like, hell no. But now it's probably like, yeah, absolutely. So maybe, but probably not, because Masai's holding on to those guys very tightly.
I'm going to throw in my extra take here. My other one that I was going to possibly go to, but didn't because we already talked about the shooting guards. Malik Monk, full-time starter by the end of the year. Contract. I think Malik, when he's heading into this offseason, I think he's going to prioritize himself, rightfully so. He only makes $9 million. He can definitely make more than that. He's been coming off the bench for Mike Brown. Like I said earlier, doesn't seem like that's changing anytime soon. I think Malik is going to have to look after himself this offseason. He's going to look for a long contract and someone who's going to guarantee him a role. If the Kings can't give it to him, it's been fun playing with his best friend, but he's going to have to move on. So I could see a situation where, sometimes front offices and coaching staff have to come together, and it wouldn't surprise me if Kevin Huerter struggles or if they can't find an answer at shooting guard, or if Malik is just having a great career contract year, they might throw him in and say, look, man, like we don't pigeonhole you into being a 6-man. We think that you can be a part of this actual core moving forward. So wouldn't surprise me if Malik enters the starting lineup mainly for that reason.
2 things on that. Number 1, Malik is absolutely getting paid this summer by somebody, and I hope it's Sacramento. Number 2, I still think the role that Malik is in is perfect for what the Sacramento Kings are doing, but it had to, the Kings needed Malik in that role last season out of necessity because Davion Mitchell was not running the offense the way that they needed to with that second unit, and Chris Duarte / Colby Jones were not here. Now that you have those guys in position and specifically Davion seems to be playing better and fitting better on as the leader of that second unit, I don't think it's out of left field for Malik to step his way into the starting lineup. I think it would take some soul searching from Mike Brown to ultimately make that decision. But last year to this year, the depth, I think, allows for that move to be possible.
It seems like the easy solution, right? I mean, we talked just about the Colby thing and who could be the two. It's like, well, Malik and De'Aaron always play great together. And also they're best friends that played in Kentucky. They've come up together to be, De'Aaron's a star and Malik is someone who could be in the 6-man conversation. And that's the easy conversation right there is, okay, slide Malik up and they're going to play. Obviously they'll open and end games because Malik already is the closer. He comes out with De'Aaron and he's the other guard next to De'Aaron more times than not. So, and again, that's something Mike Brown always points at. He's like, it's always the guys that finish games is most important to me. But I do think there's something that is important to starting off games on the right note. And we've seen the Kings fall behind early so many times. They've fallen behind. I think last year that was always kind of, the storyline is Kings fell behind early, but they figured it out. Well, hopefully this year they can come out and bring the hammer down and jump out to leads. And I think Malik and De'Aaron opening games up as a very enticing option.
What do you guys think? We've just kind of been circling this conversation for a while, but let's just get what does it look like if Kevin Huerter's coming off the bench? Because that's the thing I can't get out of my mind is just if he's just going to be a shooter that's coming off the bench, that's not very valuable. You can find Terrence Davis's to do that and not pay him $15 million a year. Kevin Huerter was brought here to be a starter and to be a part of this team moving forward. And we've had a lot of conversations about other people entering that starting lineup for him. So it really is getting me more towards to my earlier point of a big trade happening. I just don't know where Kevin Huerter fits on this team if he's not in that starting lineup.
Well, if Kevin's coming off the bench, he has to be a flamethrower. I mean, he has to be that guy that comes in for you and he helps rattle off a 9-0 run. If the starters got off to a rough start, he helps get you right back into the game. If the starters got off to a good start, he helps extend or maintain that lead just from his presence alone. Like, he just has to be ready to go offensively, and then you accept what it is on the defensive end of the floor. But I'll say this. I agree with you, Chris, in the sense that I'm not as low on Kevin Huerter as some other people are. I'm not saying you guys. I think he's been in his own head since the playoffs, and I think the focus on the defensive side of things has something to do with that, and hopefully he can work his way out of it, and maybe he just needs to see some shots fall and get back into his rhythm of a regular season to get through that. But I'll say this. If Kevin Huerter loses his starting spot, I think it's only a matter of time before the Kings move on from him, because there are other options that make more sense coming off the bench, those two-way guys that Monty is looking for.
And he's a very good system player. I mean, if he is moved out of that role because his defense is lacking that much, and the Kings do have Chris Duarte, if he looks good, they have Colby Jones, if he looks like he's going to be a guy, at least maybe not by this year to be in a starting lineup, but maybe in the future, if he's a guy they think can be a partner for De'Aaron Fox there in the rotation. I think his contract and the fact that he's a guy that can really fit anywhere. I could see Kevin Huerter fitting in Philly or the Bostons or any contender, really. The Phoenix is like, teams will want to go for him because he is a flamethrower when he's on, and a guy that can play well off ball. And that's kind of what he's been doing the whole time. But if he's in a bench role in the Kings, like that, I mean, is he playing the 3? Like if Duarte were to, be the starting 2, is Kevin Huerter your backup small forward? I mean, I just don't know how that really looks. And that's also something the Kings probably need to find stability at as well. They still don't really have a true backup small forward. Chris Duarte is a guy that he's 6'6" and can play the 3, but I mean, I think he's been more of a shooting guard in his career so far. But I mean, most ideal would be Kevin Huerter picks it up on the defensive end and shoots the ball well, and the Kings can just go, nothing to see here. But easier said than done.
Yeah, and for the record, I'm riding with Kevin. I think Kevin's going to start 60-plus games for the Kings this year. I think he'll figure it out because he was so valuable for the Kings last season when he was on. And the way Mike Brown likes to stagger his lineups, I don't think it's going to look as bad as it did look in the preseason when he was doing more hockey kind of shift changes. But we'll see. Kevin has still a lot to prove, especially with the expectation of the Kings. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Jase Medical. Look, there's so much that happens in our world, like whether it's the broad, like the unrest in the Middle East, or the fires that happen in Hawaii, or hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida. We even had like a minor earthquake in Sacramento this past week. Things happen all the time, whether it's major scale or even small scale, right? Getting sick, loved ones coming down with a bug that you thought might have just been the common cold that gets just worse and worse and worse. Ultimately, you want to be prepared for whatever life throws at you. That's why the Jase case is so important for you to have. It's a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. Look, God forbid you have to deal with anything like that, right? But if you do, a lot of our reactions is, hey, we're going to go to the hospital or go to the emergency room or whatever and get the care that we need. But we've all experienced those emergency room waiting times and things like that, plus the hassle and the stress and the cost of emergency rooms. Why go through all that trouble when the Jase case can give you exactly what you need right there at home for you to treat yourself and take care of yourself and ultimately take care of your family? Don't get caught unprepared. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. So go to jasemedical.com right now and enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at Jase, Jase medical.com. Chris, why don't we keep this ball rolling? You've rattled off a couple hot takes. Why don't you hit us with your spicy take to start to wrap this up?
man, I've got some good spicies, and I'm trying to think which one I'd like the most. Let's do. You know what? Let's do the spiciest one. Why not?
Hell yeah.
We're going ghost pepper here. Man, I don't even know if this math is going to math correctly, but the Sacramento Kings this season, we're talking about just a surplus of shooters. Again, Kevin Huerter is almost expendable. We're getting to that point. I'm saying the Kings are going to have 4 players this season that shoot over 40% from 3.
Whoa.
And those players are going to be Keegan Murray, Sasha Vezenkov, Kevin Huerter, and how about this one, Harrison Barnes, all shooting above 40% from 3.
So here's what I like about this. And I noticed this in the Golden State Warriors game too. Because of the weapons that the Kings have, Fox and Sabonis specifically, and even you can throw Murray into this conversation, but like the amount of good shooters that the Sacramento Kings have, no team in their right mind would leave them as open as they get open in Sacramento just because of Fox and Sabonis in their presence. Like Keegan Murray was torching Golden State on Sunday, and he was still getting wide open looks from the perimeter because rotations and help defense on Fox and Sabonis. So I like this from Chris because I still think the Kings' best shooters are going to get a ton of wide open looks.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm curious how much Sasha is going to play and how much opportunity he's going to get. I mean, I feel like when he is on the floor, the shots will fall. I mean, it's kind of interesting. We haven't really talked about Sasha much. Yeah, unless you have one on a mat. My next one's not about Sasha, but I was surprised looking back at the Kings numbers from last year. And HB, I think he was 37% from 3, and Kevin was over 40, Keegan's over 40. So Chris isn't that far off. I mean, that is a very good bet that happens this year. But I wonder what the kind of volume Sasha's going to be dealing with, because right now I feel like he probably isn't in the opening night rotation, but
volume don't matter for percentage, baby.
That's right. He could take what? He could go 4 of 10 this year.
Low volume's probably better for my prediction.
4 of 10. You just need 4 of 10.
That's all Frankie.
I need. Give us the spice.
All right, spicy. Chris already kind of hinted at what mine's going to be, but my spicy take is that one or both of Davion Mitchell and Kevin Huerter will not be on the Kings at the end of the season. I do think this is the year. I think this is the year the Kings are going to make a big trade. They have this core. They have what they think is a contending team. I think they're about a piece short. And I do think that they have some good assets. They have some draft collateral they could use. They have some tradable contracts. And they have guys like Davion Mitchell, who's on a restricted contract. I think that's a lot of value for some teams because you can have him for the next 6, 7, 8 years, however long you want to sign him. And then you also have Kevin Huerter, who I think has 2 more years after this year on his contract for an affordable rate. So when you look at that, I think teams will be more inclined to make a move for those players, one or both of those players versus Harrison Barnes. I mean, if the money works out, they could go for HB, but just the fact that there's 3 years on his contract versus 2 on Kevin might make it the move. But I just feel like if you're looking at how the Kings could make a big trade, I don't know how it happens without one of those players or Keegan Murray, and I do not think Keegan Murray is getting traded. So that's what I think.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around what would have to happen for the Kings to feel comfortable moving on from Davion. Like, you would have to be so secure in De'Aaron as a top tier perimeter defender, or that Chris Duarte and Colby Jones can kind of fill that void, because I think,
or you trade for one like OG. If you trade for a defender, if you bring in defense, then defense for defense. I mean, it's just a little more offense maybe, but sorry, go on.
No, that's it.
Just stating my case.
I mean, yeah, and you would definitely have to be getting some sort of backup point guard in return as well, whether it be, it could be someone like DeLon Wright or something like that. But you would definitely need somebody else to be a backup playmaker, because Malik is definitely the backup playmaker right now, but you still kind of need somebody to fill in that role if you are going to move on from Davion. And
a true point guard.
Yeah, I feel like Huerter's probably the more likely just because of the dollar figure. Like Davion, I believe, is still on his rookie deal.
Yep.
So he's not making anything significant enough to have him as like the main person in a trade. But
right.
I definitely agree. I mean, I have a tough time seeing us going into next year. I say us, the Kings going into next year with one or both of those guys on the roster, just because it feels like, again, if the Kings are going to want to take another leap and get into a different category, a different tier of teams, they're going to have to look to improve at one of those 2 spots.
All right, I'll finish with the spice. And I just kind of hinted at this in what I just said, but my spicy take is that De'Aaron Fox is going to make an all-defensive team this year. I think
wow.
that has been a challenge of Mike Brown directly to Fox. Mike said it after last season that he thinks De'Aaron is capable of that being that quality of a defender, and it's going to take De'Aaron. He talked about like the best players in the world, and again, he's coached Kobe, he's coached LeBron, he's coached Steph, he's coached with some of the best players in this generation or the past generation of basketball, so he knows this. Like, the best players in the world can turn it on and keep it on all the time. And that is his challenge for De'Aaron Fox this year. And that goes on both ends of the floor. We know Fox can light it up on the offensive side of the ball anytime he wants to. And I do think there's going to be an increase in points per game from Fox this season naturally. But if Mike's challenge to this team is truly improve on the defensive end, and Fox likes to be coached as much as he claims he does and shows that he does from last season with Mike Brown, I think Mike is going to demand excellence from Fox on the defensive side of the ball. And he has the ability to be such a pest defensively that he could work himself into the All-NBA defensive conversation.
Can I say that I don't like this?
Okay.
Yes, you can.
I just don't see it. I mean, I just think that like De'Aaron would have to be somewhere near, like, especially to be noticed as a like defensive stalwart, he would have to be 2+ steals a game. He's been at like 1.5, I think is his most in his career. It would also take like a really big narrative push as well. Like you mentioned, Mike Brown has been talking up De'Aaron's defense a lot, but a big part of being a defensive guy, not a lot of people look at the defensive end of the floor. It's either going to have to be stats or essentially propaganda to get you into a defensive, all defensive team conversation. And I just frankly think De'Aaron does too much on the offensive end to really ever care for 82 games about defense.
That's
especially
fair.
when like Marcus Smart is going to get 25 starts probably in Memphis. Like there's going to be so many other guys that are more focused on defense.
Drew Holiday still exists.
Drew Holiday.
Yeah. And like, let me go ahead and say, like, last year was the most engaged and consistent I think we've ever seen De'Aaron Fox play defense. So I want to just give him his flowers real quick that he definitely bought into that end of the floor and he improved. And he's also a guy, which I'm surprised to see. He's almost a 1.5 steals per game for his career guy. He definitely is a guy that picks up steals. Obviously at the beginning of his career, it was more, when he really wanted to buy in and some anticipation defense there. But last year was a lot of on-ball defense, and I really want to give him credit for that. But yeah, I think just the fact that it's so deep, the NBA is so deep with guards that can play defense that, crazy things can happen. I'm sure crazier things have happened. I'm sure that if some injuries happen or things go the right way, De'Aaron could maybe even get some votes. I feel like him getting some votes would be a start, or getting, a decent amount of votes would be a start. But I like that. I like that's a spicy hot take. That's a very spicy meatball, sir.
It would also probably require the Kings to be like not 24th in defensive rating.
Correct. It would require the Kings to be a significantly better defensive team that's improved, and then the league goes, okay, where did it start? Oh, right. Look at what De'Aaron Fox is doing. And if you want a narrative too, I'll tell you the narrative that Fox started last season that I will push to the freaking moon. This top guard is not guarding De'Aaron Fox in the fourth quarter, but De'Aaron Fox is guarding their top guard in the fourth quarter. Fox pointed that out last year, and it continues to be true.
Yeah, Warriors put Draymond on Fox, I think in game 4 or 5, or a couple of times, I think, down the stretch in those final 3-4 games, they put Draymond on Fox. So yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a different beast with Fox. He's having to do, I don't know, man. They push themselves to the limit, and he is a guy that gets the full force of opposing teams' defenses for sure.
All right, real quick, because Chris, I know you probably have another extra spicy in the chamber, so rattle it off. Oh, hit them rapid fire with us. I want to hear these.
This one's easy. Kings will win the in-season tournament. They're just going to care more. I
like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it's spicy. I feel like
I thought about that one.
I feel like a lot of people have thought about it. Younger team. They haven't really done anything in terms of accomplishments. They haven't won any NBA titles. They've never made a conference finals. They need to kind of have something on their resume that you can point to and say, hey, look, you guys have done this. Why can't you do this moving forward? So I think winning the in-season tournament's a big one.
Vegas round 2 for us 3, huh? Vegas round 2. Let's ride.
December Vegas. Come on, there's no better time.
We'll see at the tables, Matt. We'll see at the tables.
Not
24
there.
Black 13, boy.
No, I ain't going. I ain't going with Brendan again.
My other one, my other spicy take is the Kings will sweep the Golden State Warriors in the regular season.
I love this one. I love this one. And I was thinking the exact same thing. I love this one. Hell yes, Chris Watkins.
Yeah.
Man,
It's cute. They got the preseason
Revenge on their mind.
sweep. That's cute. You get the
I would love
preseason
to see
sweep.
that.
That's fine.
So cute.
Is
Chris, that's my favorite
night
one.
in the preseason.
every single Kings Warriors game
Outta
is
here,
going
boy.
to be decided by 2 or less points, right? Like it's going to happen. Like there's no way those two teams
Blowout.
can't go down to the freaking 4-for-4 Kings blowouts. I love it.
I'm not
love it.
predicting that.
It just feels like it has to happen that way, though. Every time these two teams play, it's just a requirement to go down to the wire.
Yeah, last year the Kings and Warriors played in 4 regular season games, and I believe if you take away the last one, the Kings didn't play anybody. The point differential was 4. I'm looking at it here. I think it was 4 points. So yeah, I do think it'd be great, Chris. That's my favorite one. If the Kings can sweep the Warriors and kind of just take the baton from them and say we're officially, we're passing you guys up. You have Chris Paul.
Sit down, 40, old men.
Yeah, you're 40-year-old men, and we are moving on to the next
I will
round here.
forever contest that the Kings were the better team in last year's playoffs, and they lost it for themselves. I mean, the Kings shot like absolute garbage that entire playoff series, and definitely hats off to the Warriors. They played their part in that, but I mean, there was only, what was that, game 4 where it was 126-125. That was really the only game that the Kings looked like the Kings that I had seen all season long. Besides that, they were missing shots. Obviously, Kevin Huerter wasn't himself. Domantas Sabonis wasn't himself. I think the Kings were the better team, and they just were unexperienced and didn't really know how to handle a series against a team like that. I feel like they were the better team last year. I don't think Golden State got better talent-wise this year. I think Chris Paul is a different look. It might lead to a better locker room, a better culture, maybe better success in the playoffs. But I don't think that the Warriors are a better team than the Kings. And I think with the Kings obviously having the Warriors at the front of their minds, I think that they're going to use all of those games as statement games, especially these first 2.
Yep, they're going to have a chance to prove it right away. 2 of the first 4 games of the season, 1 in Sacramento, 1 in Golden State. The NBA is trying to push this rivalry, and it indeed is a rivalry no matter what Dub Nation tries to claim. Well, guys, this is fun every year. I love doing it every year. Thank you so much. Brought to you by Taco Bell. Hopefully, maybe,
yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
Front.
Yeah, dude, yes, absolutely.
Chris, Frankie, you guys are amazing. Keep up the amazing work that you're doing at SacTown Sports. Of course, Frankie, the SacTown Sports Kings insider and writer, and then Chris Watkins, the first full season on the radio with your midday show, which is amazing. Can't wait to follow that all season long too. It's gonna be a good
Watkins,
year, boys.
October 26th debut.
Let's enjoy it. It's like the opener before the opener. That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
I'm in. All right, guys.
It's gonna be.
Thank you so much for doing this. Let's do it again next year.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
same
Matt.
time, same place.
Big thank you again to Frankie and Chris for joining me here. And we're very interested in seeing and hearing your mild, hot, and spicy predictions for the Sacramento Kings season. So remember to send them to us. And if you want to respond to any of the predictions that we rattled off, feel free to do that as well. Love doing that with them. Can't wait to do it again next year. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. I'm going to be heading to Utah very, very soon. Should have one podcast before I actually head out to Salt Lake City for the season opener. But of course, I'll have content from Salt Lake for you. And then I'll head back to Sacramento and we'll get ready for Friday's home opener against the Golden State Warriors. So Kings basketball is here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get excited and let's get fired up. And of course, I'll have you covered all season long and soon all post-season long with all the Kings content that you could possibly want. Appreciate you. Can't wait to have you join me again very soon. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.